Where's the juice harp, Joe? Cried Laurie, as soon as he was within speaking distance. I forgot it, and Joe took heart again, for that salutation could not be good lover-like. She always used to take his arm on these occasions. Now she did not, and he made no complaint, which was a bad sign, but talked on rapidly about all sorts of faraway subjects, till they turned from the road into the little path that led homeward through the grove. Then he walked more slowly, suddenly lost his fine flow of language, and now and then a dreadful pause occurred to rescue the conversation from one of the wells of silence into which it kept falling. Joe said hastily, "Now you must have a good, long holiday." "I intend to." Something in his resolute tone made Joe look up quickly to find him looking down at her with an expression that assured her the dreaded moment had come and made her put out her hand with an imploring, "No, Teddy, please don't." "I will, and you must hear me. It's no use, Joe. We've got to have it out, and the sooner the better for both of us," he answered, getting flushed and excited all at once. "Say what you like, then I'll listen," said Joe with a desperate sort of patience. Joe is deadly afraid at this point.
Yes. As an adult, at least reading this scene, I don't see how people are still like wanting her to say yes. And really, I don't see how Laurie still ends up people's like favorite character that is not a sister.
I think it's the adaptations.
Oh, you're probably right. Because we just did a poll in the Little Women Book Club. And first we did a poll of who's your favorite sister. And of course, Joe in a landslide won. And then we did a poll that was who's your favorite character who isn't one of the sisters. And Laurie won by more than double that of the runner-up. But at least the runner-up was Friedrich. I am happy about that. But like really overall, Laurie got more votes even than Joe got from both the polls.
Interesting. The 2019 film, Laurie has no flaws. They have all been erased.
Well, his costuming.
Well, that one, yeah.
Oh, what bugs me so much, because I felt like in general, he did a pretty good job, but the costuming really did him no justice because when he's supposed to be a grown-up, especially in that proposal scene, he looks like he's got like a full diaper or something because his drawers are so loose. Like it looks like he's like a child who has a diaper that needs to be changed.
Somebody who was a Joe and Laurie shipper said to me that Friedrich was terrible bully in the 2019 film. Laurie was always kind to Joe.
Oh, interesting. I didn't think that Friedrich came off as a bully. I think that they made a mistake by not casting someone German. I think they made a mistake by casting somebody who was too conventionally handsome. People get so wrapped up in the idea that when they think that Joe and Laurie should have been together. If they actually read the book, that they must not have very much reading comprehension.
I think they got really defensive. Like they were on Joe's side when Joe said that Friedrich was a terrible bully. So they didn't fight with Joe. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Because in the book, Joe and Friedrich don't argue.
Whole film, I mean, the only thing good that came out of that film is that it gave, I think, a lot of people new eyes to look at Amy. Amy had a little bit of a redemption in that film, but at the same time, it was so weird seeing that actress play young Amy and then adult Amy. That just didn't, to me, that didn't work, especially since the whole thing was done in like flashbacks and flash forwards, and it just didn't work to me.
And it was really confusing because once you have Joe saying that she wants to be alone, then she's lonely, then she says that she's in love with Friedrich, and then she suddenly wants Laurie back. But I have no idea what was going on in it. Like what was going on in Joe's head.
It's like they wanted to take a story that just is a beautiful story that has a lot of heart and turn it into something artsy. That's not what the story is. Yeah, it just didn't work. I know you agree. It just didn't. The whole idea behind it didn't work.
I just like to complain about it.
I always try to remind myself is that with things like this that I didn't like it, but there's someone who did. So maybe that film was for them. And maybe that film will then be the gateway to them watching one that actually will be better, or maybe to read more of the books or any of the books, because I mean, there are Little Women fans who have not read the book who just like watching the movies. Yeah, we have some people like that in the book club. All they are interested in are the movies. And I mean, I understand that. I guess there are some really good books that I haven't read, but I've seen the movies of. But for the most part, if I see a movie that is good, I try to read the book first, and if I don't, then I'll read the book later. But I'm also a big bookworm. Laurie was a young lover, but he was in earnest and meant to have it out. If he died in the attempt, so he plunged into the subject with characteristic impetuosity, saying in a voice that would get choky now and then, in spite of manful efforts to keep it steady, "I've loved you ever since I've known you, Joe. Couldn't help it. You've been so good to me. I've tried to show it, but you wouldn't let me. Now I'm going to make you hear and give me an answer, for I can't go on so any longer. I wanted to save you this. I thought you'd understand," began Joe, finding it a great deal harder than she expected. "I know you did, but the girls are so queer you never know what they mean. They say no when they mean yes and drive a man out of his wits just for the fun of it," returned Laurie, entrenching himself behind an undeniable fact. Okay, so when I reread this the other day, this made me mad.
I have a red flag drawn to this part.
Yes, it's such a red flag. And, I'm like, I didn't realize that this notion that when women say no, they mean yes, that it was such an old idea. And the fact that it says entrenching himself behind an undeniable fact. It's like, how is that an undeniable fact? I don't know a single woman who says no when they mean yes. If he knew Joe, he'd know that that wouldn't be how she is either, and that's why she keeps going.
And it's like that scene in Vienna when he doesn't really seem to know Joe at all when he tries to put her into the opera.
Yes.
And just after that, he realizes, well, Joe would not really fit into an opera.
And it's exactly what she tells him in this chapter, that he needs someone who's elegant. He needs someone who's going to fit in his world, and she doesn't. And when I was thinking about his whole purpose of this proposal, he doesn't actually want to marry her. He wants to marry her family. You know what I mean? Like she was the doorway into which he entered the March family to begin with. And so to him, it's this natural thing that means he should marry her. In a way, he kind of continues this. One of our book club members mentioned that she doesn't really believe so much that Laurie even was completely sincere with Amy. Like that the idea really was still that he wanted to marry into the family. And so it wasn't like, oh, I love you, Amy, and so we're going to be married now. You're another way for me to be really a part of this family.
I made an episode where I analyzed Laurie's proposal to Amy. He's very flicky because in one moment he's like, he tries to resent the idea that he falls in love with Amy because he sees himself as this romantic hero. He feels like he owes Joe some kind of a favor, which he doesn't. He feels like he's unfaithful to Joe, even though Joe has said no many times to him. And I have no idea why he feels like that. And I think it might have to do with this whole idea of a family.
Yeah, because when him and Joe first became friends, when he first was moved in with his grandfather, he felt very disconnected from people, right? Because both of his parents were gone, and he did not have that closeness with his grandfather yet at that point. Joe became like this lifeline to family. He knew he was miserable without her at that point in his life. So that's probably why he feels like he owes her, is because of that.
I think he almost sees Joe as the last resort, that when he marries Joe, he doesn't need to grow and be responsible. He doesn't need to fit into that world that his grandfather wants him to fit into, because Joe has these maternal feelings for him and she kind of tries to keep him on the right path. So he's almost addicted to that nurturing nature that she has for boys and for him.
I opened up for discussion this chapter with the book club on Facebook because maybe there'll be somebody who has some kind of extra insight. And one of our members, Rain, pointed out what a great amount of integrity Joe shows by rejecting Laurie. And I could agree with this more, but it made me think too about the concept in a lot of, like a big theme in a lot of German literature, right, is is the women's self-sacrificing love, especially in things like Goethe, right? And we know Louisa May Alcott loved this, that you loved, German literature.
Yeah.
And we can see this theme in other parts of Little Women, the self-sacrificing love, the behavior of Beth, or even Jo cutting off her hair to sell for her family. But I really appreciate that in this scene, Jo does not sacrifice herself. That she doesn't say, "Oh, he loves me and my family. I'm not going to hurt him. Oh, I do love him. I just don't love him the right way, but I'll still marry him." I mean, think how easy that's how this scene could have gone that way, especially if you follow this theme of women self-sacrificing love.
I recently read Anna Swim. It's another Alcott short story. But it had an interesting scene where this Anna, the female character, she wants uncomplicated friendships with young men that feels like the time when they were kids, children, without any kind of romantic feelings. That is the relationships that she wants with male friends.
Yes.
And then she wants real love with somebody, which is not based on finance. That was the discussion between Melodie and myself. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time. Take care and make good choices. Bye.